Urticaria, commonly known as hives, is a skin condition characterized by itchy, raised patches or welts on the skin. It's often triggered by allergic reaction, but it can also be caused by other factors like infections, medications, or even physical stimuli. It consists of a migratory, well-circumscribed, erythematous pruritic plaques on the skin. Urticaria results from the release of histamine, bradykinin, kallikrein, and other vasoactive substances from mast cells and basophils in the superficial dermis, resulting in intradermal edema caused by capillary and venous vasodilation and occasionally caused by leukocyte infiltration. The process can be immune-mediated or non-immune-mediated. Immune-mediated mast cell activation includes type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, in which allergen-bound Ig antibodies bind to high-affinity cell surface receptors on mast cells and basophils. Autoimmune disorders, in which antibodies to an Ig receptor functionally cross-link Ig receptors and cause mast cell degranulation. Non-immune-mediated mast cell activation includes direct non-allergic activation of mast cells by certain medications or substances. Drug-induced cyclooxygenase inhibition that activates mast cell by poorly understood mechanism. Activation by physical or emotional stimuli. Mechanism is poorly understood but possibly involves the release of neuropeptides that interact with mast cells. Urticaria is classified as acute if it is less than 6 weeks or chronic if it is greater than 6 weeks. Acute cases are more common than chronic. Acute urticaria most often results from type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. A presumptive trigger such as medication, food ingestion, insect bite or sting infection occasionally can be identified. Chronic urticaria most often result from idiopathic causes and also autoimmune disorders. When we evaluate a patient with urticaria, history of present illness should include a detailed account of the individual episodes of urticaria, including distribution, size, and appearance of lesions, and also frequency of occurrence, duration of individual lesion, and any prior episodes. Activities and exposures during, immediately, and within the past 24 hours of the appearance of urticaria should be noted. Clinicians specifically should ask about recent exercise, exposure to potential allergen, insects, or animals, new laundry detergent or soaps, new foods, recent infections, or recent stressful life events. In addition, review of systems should seek symptoms of causative disorders. If there is malnourished, maybe from SLE, fever, abdominal pain, the diarrhea shows infection as an etiology, hot or cold intolerance, tremor, weight changes due to autoimmune thyroiditis, lymphadenopathy might be from viral illness or malignancy, cutaneous ulcers and hyperpigment lesion after resolution of urticaria can be urticarial vasculitis. Past medical history should include a detailed allergen history, including known atopic conditions such as asthma, eczema, and known possible causes, malignancy, and autoimmune disorders. All medication use should be reviewed, including over-the-counter medications and herbal products, specifically any agent particularly associated with urticaria. Family history should elicit any history of systemic rheumatoid disease, other autoimmune disorders, or malignancy. Social history should cover any recent travel and any risk factor for transmission of infectious disease, such as hepatitis and HIV infection. Vital signs should note the presence of bradycardia or tachycardia and tachypnea. General examination should immediately seek any signs of respiratory distress and also note jaundice, agitation, cachexia, and the like. Examination of the head should note any swelling of the face, lips, or tongue, sclera rectalis, malar rash, tender and enlarged thyroid, lymphadenopathy, dry eyes, and dry mouth should be checked. The oropharynx should be inspected and the sinus should be palpated and transilluminated for signs of occult infection. Abdominal examination should note any masses, organomegaly, any tenderness, And the neurologic examination should note any tremor or hyperreflexia, hyporeflexia. On musculoskeletal, we should note the presence of any inflamed or deformed joint. Skin examination should note the presence and the distribution of urticarial lesions, as well as any cutaneous ulceration, hyperpigmentation, papules, or jaundice. Urticarial lesions usually appear as a well-demarcated, transient swelling involving the dermis. These swelling are typically erythematous and vary in size from pinprick to covering wide areas. Some lesions can be very large. In other cases, smaller urticarial lesions may become confluent. However, skin lesions also may be absent at the time of the visit, and the maneuvers to evoke physical urticaria can be done during examination, including exposure to vibration, warmth, cold, water, or pressure. The following findings are of particular concern or red flags: angioedema, swelling of face, lips, and the tongue, stridor, wheezing, and other respiratory distress, hyperpigmented lesions, ulcers, or urticaria that persist greater than 48 hours, signs of systemic illness, such as fever, lymphadenopathy, cachexia, red flags. Acute urticaria is nearly always due to some defined exposure to a medication, substance, or physical stimuli, or an acute infectious illness. However, the trigger is not always clear from mystery, particularly because allergy may develop without warning to a previously tolerated substance. Most chronic urticaria is idiopathic. The next most common cause is autoimmune disorder, as I have said above. The causative autoimmune disease is sometimes clinically apparent. For example, urticarial vasculitis sometimes associated with systemic rheumatoid disease, such as SLE or Sjogren's syndrome. And in this case, or in urticarial vasculitis, urticaria is accompanied by finding of leukocytoclastic vasculitis on histopathology. It should be considered when the urticaria is painful rather than pruritic, and lasts greater than 48 hours, does not plunge, or is associated by vesicles or purpura. Usually, no testing is needed for an isolated episode of urticaria unless symptoms and signs suggest specific disorder, such as infection. Unusual, recurrent, or persistent cases need further evaluation. Allergy skin testing should be done, and the routine laboratory test should consist of CBC, chemistry, organ function test, thyroid function test. Then further testing should be guided by symptoms and the signs, such as autoimmune disorder and any abnormality on the screening test. In addition, skin biopsy should be done if there is any uncertainty as to diagnose or if will persist more than 48 hours to rule out urticarial vasculitis. When we came to treatment of urticaria, first we should have to avoid triggers. Any identified causes are treated or remedied. Implicated medications or food should be stopped. And then specific symptomatic treatment such as taking a cool bath, avoiding hot water, and scratching, wearing loose clothing might be helpful. In addition, antihistamines remain the mainstay of treatment. They must be taken on a regular basis rather than as needed. Newer oral antihistamines often are preferred because of once daily dosing and because some are less sedating, such as cetirizine, desloratadine, and levocetirizine. Systemic corticosteroids, such as prednisolone, are given for severe symptoms, but should not be used long term. But topical corticosteroids or topical antihistamines are not beneficial overall. Patients with chronic idiopathic urticaria often do not respond to antihistamines or other medications commonly used. Omalizumab, a monoclonal antibody that can suppress certain allergic reactions, might help relieve symptoms. Patients who have angioedema involving the oropharynx or any involvement of the airway should receive subcutaneous epinephrine and be admitted to the hospital. And on this chart, patients should be supplied with and trained in the use of an auto-injectable epinephrine pen if they have angioedema.